You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, the end is near.
Well, that's what the Watchtower always says. The end is near. Well, we have a program coming up next. You do not want to go anywhere. You know, many Jehovah's Witnesses right now are leaving the organization. And sad to say, many don't want to connect with God. They left Jehovah, so to speak, and they don't want anything to do with God, Christianity, or the Bible. But there are a number of ex-witnesses that do. And we have one coming on today. His name is Gilbert Gonzalez from Phoenix, Arizona. And he wants to talk to us today. He wants to tell us how he left the Watchtower, how he became a Christian. So we have Anne Marie will be the gal that's going to be interviewing him and talking with him. Hello, Anne Marie.
Hello, my brother. How are you doing this day?
Well, today is a good day. We're getting things really geared up here at the Six Screens, Anne Marie. Things are really working. I was up till 6 o'clock this morning. Those programs went all night long.
Oh my goodness, Rick! I really don't know how you do it.
It was unbelievable. But anyways, we got Gilbert coming in here next, and I'm going to kind of cut you guys loose. So I'm going to bring Gilbert up. He's on YouTube, and you'll be able to see him when we bring him up. Here he is here now. So what I'm going to do, Gilbert, I'm going to step in the background. I'm going to bring Anne Marie in. She'll be on telephone line talking. So let's go with that. I'll drop out, and I'll leave it up to Anne Marie and Gilbert.
Hey, Anne Marie.
Thank you. Hi, Gilbert. I just want to take a moment to welcome everyone on Set Stream Sunday. It's our special day. We only have it twice a month. And this program is ex-Jehovah's Witnesses share their Christian testimonies. Today is August 28th, 2022. As a side note, my twins are 51 years old today. And we have a very special guest. So I've been looking forward to interviewing you. His name is Gilbert. And Gilbert, I want to thank you for coming on the show today, being willing to share with others your trek in the Watchtower, coming out of the Watchtower, coming to Christ, and to this point where you're coming on this platform to share your ex-Jehovah's Witness Christian testimony. What we try to do, Gilbert, is just cover certain points for every testimony, how you came to be in the organization, the cult we know as Watchtower, what your life was like while you were in the Watchtower, how you came to know that Watchtower was not God's organization, that they were not teaching the truth, how you came to come out of that organization, how did you break free, and how did you come to Christ, and how was your life different? Now, I understand from what Rick said that you actually came to Christ as a 7-year-old little boy, but you were being raised as a Jehovah's Witness, if I understand correctly. So would you like to just, in your own words, just tell your story, and I'll listen, and I'll ask questions for clarification if I need to, but I'll try not to interrupt, and I'll be here. Is that okay, Gilbert?
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, you know what? It wasn't 7 years old. I was in the 7th grade. I remember it. I was like about 12 years old, and so all of our friends, we didn't live in the bad side of town. We didn't live in the good rich side of town. We were right in the middle, in Yuma, Arizona, and we had all of my friends in grammar school. There were some black fellas, there was some white fellas, some Mexican fellas. We had it all in our neighborhood, and we all decided to go early to school and walk and not take the bus. It was a gang of us on 14th Street, So it was a very special day because we're going to go to junior high. We're leaving elementary, and I still remember that day to this day because when we finally get there, there's like the junior high is divided into sections. So like the American English speaking fellas, they were called the jocks, and they would have like the little, not gang, but their groups, and the black fellas had their groups, the Mexicans had their groups. And so what happened is that morning we all go to school together as friends, but everybody joins a group. And in order to join a group, you have to go through the initiation of guys beating each other up to join the group. And when the day was over, I found myself walking home alone, because my whole grammar school friends, everything was just lost. But I never forgot that day, because I always knew I was a Christian. I always knew I believed in Jesus. And the reason why is because when my mom came from Mexico, she already had 3 kids. Her firstborn, which was the fourth, her firstborn died at birth. So she had 3 more babies. And so she comes to the United States, and she has my older brother, Jesse. But his real name is Jesus, like Jesus, because she's coming into a foreign land and she doesn't speak the language. So she has to protect her children. So what does she do? She calls her boy Jesus. And that's what they do in Mexico. And my parents always loved God. They were God-fearing people. And my mother literally put the fear of Jesus on my brother. When you go to school, your name is Jesus. You can't, you got to behave. But so we always loved God. And the problem was my dad had a falling out with the Catholic Church, and the Jehovah's Witnesses got my parents because of the resurrection of them being able to see their firstborn daughter again. But my parents were never Jehovah's Witnesses. But what happened is, because they were letting us go to the meetings, it was too hard for them to take us out. So, but I will say this, that I was blessed to be in the Spanish congregation, because when I go on YouTube and I hear all the stories, the horror stories, I know they're true. I've heard about them in my hometown. I saw it firsthand. But I feel like we were a little bit sheltered in the Spanish community back in the 70s and 80s. And I think part of the reason why is because a lot of the Jehovah's Witnesses, say from Bethel or from Gilead, they really hadn't infiltrated the local congregations. And the Spanish congregations, I mean, for crying out loud, a lot of the people are called Jesus. So there's a natural, a lot of the Spanish Jehovah's Witnesses have a stronger inclination to Jesus Christ, in my opinion, than the English. And so in that way, I think I was a little bit sheltered, and I was a little bit protected from the fanaticism in the English congregation. Does that make any sense?
No, it really, I live in an area where we have heavily Hispanic, and my children became really good friends with guys that were in the Spanish congregation. In fact, they used to sneak off and hang out. In the Spanish culture, in the Hispanic culture, they're way more spiritual, if you will. They're not so dogmatic and mean and judgmental and cold. They're more family oriented. They're more kind. They include people. They're very, very loving. I needed to ask you, Gilbert, if you don't mind. You said that your parents weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, but they allowed you to go to the Kingdom Hall. How did that happen?
Well, I did a video about that, and I call it a spiritual adultery. What happens is Watchtower gets involved in a relationship that is none of their business. The mother and the father have to make these decisions, but what happens is they prey on women who are raising children, and the women want to protect their children, so they want to naturally take them to church. The husband doesn't want to. And this is where Watchtower gets involved in the middle of that relationship. So now the woman is listening to strange men when she should be with her husband, and both of them together as one should be making decisions that have to do with worshiping God. And so so that's what happens is, they started going to the meetings, then my dad stopped going, and then, my mom started fading. But by that time we were already teenagers. We were already giving parts in the school, and we were already cooked. Yeah.
So for clarification, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Did your parents come in contact with Jehovah's Witnesses in the cult recruiting work? Were they?
Yeah. I was probably like, I was probably like 6 months old, and when they started knocking on our door, and they got my mom and dad on the resurrection, because my mom and dad lost their firstborn child. and so yeah, they started going to the meetings, and when my dad started asking questions, and he started getting pushback, he was like a Jehovah's Witness today, asking questions, and he just said he didn't want to be a follower of men, and so he had a falling out
So
with the Catholic Church and with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
were you okay? Okay, so you basically, I'm trying to just have clarification. I'm so sorry. So you started going to the meetings with your parents as an infant, as a young child?
Yeah.
And then you still attending meetings in 7th grade, is this correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I was giving parts, and I was giving
okay.
parts at a very young age.
Okay.
And so the 7th grade was a pivotal moment for me, because I knew right then and there that I was different, but I wasn't different like I was better. I just knew I was different, and it had to do with. I remember. I'm not joking. I'm not making this up. I remember in 7th grade how the Bible text of being embarrassed of Jesus Christ and Jesus being embarrassed of you. That Bible text just haunted my brain, and so kind of like for those of you who are watching, like if you see in the movie Top Gun when he tells Tom Cruise, you never ever leave your wingman. And that's how I felt. I go, no matter how much I wanted to do this or do that, I just couldn't I felt like I couldn't abandon God or Jehovah or Jesus Christ. The good thing about being in the Spanish congregation, though, is I was still able to be friends and join. I was in band, and I was able to, join. I was able to associate and be friends with whoever I wanted. I used to see my English-speaking Jehovah's Witness brothers, and I felt sorry for them, because they weren't given the same freedom I was given. My parents gave me the freedom to do whatever I wanted, and so I had friends, but I always kept the relationship, in a clean one. I always kept. So whenever I was confronted to do things that were wrong, like I remember in the 9th grade, a good friend of mine came over to my house, and he wanted to go partying, go drinking. Because he was going to go drinking with the seniors and the sophomores and everything. And I go, Albert, I can't go. He goes, why? He goes, because I would hurt my mother. I would lie to her. And he goes, oh, you don't have to tell her. I go, you don't understand. I go, I can't do anything to hurt my mother. And I got to give thanks to my mom and dad, because my dad taught me to love my mother, and my mother taught me to love my dad. And that was a great foundation for me. Even though I was a Jehovah's Witness, I understood honoring my mother, and I understood honoring my father. I understood not lying to my mother. I understood not lying to my father. I understood that, for example, my friends were smoking marijuana in high school, but my uncle had died in the drug trade in Mexico, and I saw how it destroyed my grandparents and my uncles and aunts. The last baby child of my grandparents, died in the drug trade. So, I thank God that, one, my brother is Jesus, Jesus, and I thank God, because even though we were Jehovah's Witnesses, all of my siblings, my mom and dad taught us the foundation, which is love your mother and love your dad, love your father, and that protected me throughout high school, and it gave me the confidence to make friends with technically worldly people. So I was sheltered. I didn't experience the hardships that a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses experience. And you know what? When I talk to a lot of Spanish-speaking people in my Spanish YouTube page, they feel the same way. That they hear the horror stories, they feel sorry for the people that suffered, but we although we did suffer, we relatively came out pretty clean. We went in through the fire, but we didn't get scorched like some people. I thank God that happened to me and my brother. Does that make sense?
No, that just makes absolutely perfect sense, Gilbert. Again, I'm very familiar with the difference between the Spanish culture and the Jehovah's Witnesses. Are much more. I don't even know how to put it, but they're close. They do instill love. There is a solid foundation of love that is, to me, indigenous to the culture. Any solid culture seems to have that core of real love for their families, respect and love for their mom, for their father, and for each other. There is a solid love and loyalty and kindness, a sense of protectiveness. Like you said, you didn't want to lie to your mother or to your father. It's not just respect. It is a deep sense of not wanting in any way to betray the love and the trust that your parents have. And that's how it is in the culture. My husband and I are very close to a Hispanic family we love dearly, known the children since before birth. We're familiar with the Spanish congregation here where I live, and everything you are saying, Gilbert, I completely identify with, and I'm so glad that you didn't have the experience in a standard white congregation, because that's just about the worst place to be. I'd rather be in an all-black congregation, which I was as a child, where there was nothing but love, and everything was so sweet. And as soon as I got into an all-white congregation, they had money. They were cold. They were gossiping. They were judgmental. They would sneer. They were better than. They had cliques. And they were very, very judgmental. They were horrible to me and to my mother. So everything you're saying, I relate to. And please continue, Gilbert. I'm really enjoying your testimony.
Well, what happened was, so in my senior year, and right after, I had a girlfriend. I thank God she was my girlfriend, because she was living with her brother-in-law, her sister. He was an elder, but she was not baptized. She wasn't even a witness. But I started going, I kind of want, we weren't like soulmates, so I just knew this isn't going to work out. And I was trying to find a reason to break up. But the point is this: I had the Yuma congregation. We only had one Spanish at the time, because we didn't have another Kingdom Hall, and we had about like close to 300 people, sometimes on a Sunday. It was huge. And I thought to myself, well, one, I'm never going to advance in this congregation, and number two, and by that, and then and I had a run in. I literally was with all of the older men, and I'm a young kid. I'm 18 years old, and these 25, 29-year-old elders, to me, they're giants. So I'm in a room with all of these old men, elders, and I'm giving them the riot act because of their lack of respect of the organized book, of Watchtower procedures, just everything. Because I understood how the organization worked, and I was faithful to the organization. I was faithful to the rule of law, of the rules of the organization. But I didn't. That was my first time I was learning that, hey, guess what? These elders, one, never quote Jesus. They never quote the Bible, and they are totally unfaithful to the organized book. And I would always preach that to my brother Jesus, Jesse, and to make I should have been disfellowshipped for the way I was lambasting these elders. And the oldest elder, the older man, who was actually a Korean War veteran, came up to me and he says, "Gilbert, you've said enough. Now be quiet." And he basically saved me from being disfellowshipped. So what I did is I left the congregation. I think, God, why didn't you disfellowship me then? But I didn't. I left the congregation to a city outside of Yuma called Welton, which is a very small farming town. So I had to drive 30 miles to get to the books, the school and the Watchtower study. And I had to drive 90 miles to the middle of nowhere. I mean, literally the middle of nowhere where these farmers are at. And I would have a book study out there at the elder's home, because the elder wouldn't show up to his own book study. And we're talking Mennonite, Amish type territory. I would go way out in the middle of nowhere. And I did it for like 2.5 years. But when I was at Welton, there was about 4 or 5 people lucky would show up on a Sunday for the Watchtower public talk. Well, after 2.5, 3 years, not only was I the Watchtower conductor, and not only was I the school conductor, I was Watchtower conductor. I was giving public speeches at 19, 20, 21. My first public talk, I was 19. I had all of the liberty in the world. I had all of the liberty, and I basically went from a congregation of just 3, 4, 5 people showing up on a Sunday to over 100 in a little farming community. And I knew right there, like I told Rick yesterday, some people are good at this. Some people are good at building churches. And Watchtower wants everybody to go door to door. No, not everybody is good at the same thing. But I knew I was very good at building congregations. and visiting, the people that the Jehovah's Witnesses that were weak per se. And I would visit them. I would visit the family, and I was very kind to them. And because I was alone and a young man, I was able to do my own thing without the rules and regulations of the Watchtower. So now I'm 21 years old. I do the same thing again when I move back to Yuma, and we build a huge congregation called the Yuma East. It divides, and we form a congregation called the Valle Vista. And that meeting was on a Saturday at 4:00, and we were rivaling every congregation in attendance on a Saturday at 4. Why? Because I was in it and I was working it hard, and I'm very proud of it. You see, that's when I also learned that a lot of elders, they don't know how to work in the ministry. And it's not a criticism of them. It's just Watchtower wants everybody to be the same. And you can't have a religion or a church that functions well when everybody's doing the exact same thing and 99% of them are not good at it. Now I know that, hindsight is 2020. You need to have everybody needs to know their limitations, and everybody needs to know what they're good at. And everybody needs to work in those different departments. And that's how you make a church and a congregation grow. You can't have a music teacher going door to door talking to people about magazines. That music teacher needs to be at the church teaching kids the importance of music and the importance of music and worship. Do you follow me?
Of course, we follow you, Gilbert. So
Yeah.
interesting listening to you.
Yeah. So
Go ahead, sweet. Now we only have about 25 minutes left. So
okay.
let's just go ahead and cover your testimony. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So basically, I leave Watchtower, and I told Rick about 4 weeks ago, when you leave, you go Grizzly. If you're going to be Bear, go Grizzly. When I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I flew an airplane over well, let me back up. It was real simple. Christian testimony. It was real simple. If you're Jehovah's Witness, it's real simple. All you have to do is go in a private room and get the bread and the wine. And if you don't want to talk, if you don't want to pray to Jesus, just ask God, hey, Father, can I talk to Jesus for a little bit? And just say, you surrender. And that's what I did. I ate from the bread and the wine, and I surrendered. I just said, Jesus, I can't do this anymore. I can't compete. I can't think I'm better than anybody. You just have to surrender to Jesus Christ and stop this competing and just start helping people like a true brother and a true sister. So what I did is when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I ran a campaign, GG for GB, Gilbert Gonzalez for governing body, and I flew an airplane over the San Diego convention saying that I was running for governing body, GG for GB. And I went big. I went huge. And this is the reason why. When Jesus was alive, he talked about God, but he let John the Baptist do his work. But when he got baptized, Jesus came out swinging. And this is what my message to you, Jehovah's Witnesses. You have been trained for this moment in time. You're a PIMO. You're physically in, mentally out. You have been trained. You have been trained for this moment. So now that you're going to leave the Watchtower, you don't go and start crying and saying, I feel sorry for myself. No. You get ready, you dress up, and you go Grizzly. See, my brother and I were talking about how even a baby, a newborn baby, fights when it feels threatened. A newborn baby fights when it feels threatened. It's a natural instinct. But Jehovah's Witnesses have emasculated these men, where they abuse these men, and no Jehovah's Witness elder fights back. They disfellowship your children, they steal your kingdom halls, and nobody's fighting back because they've been emasculated. No. If you're Jehovah's Witness and you're watching this, when you leave, you got to leave like Jesus Christ. You got to leave like John the Baptist, and you got to go at it 100%, however you choose to do. But George Washington said this, a very important quote. He said, he says, we should not look back unless it is to derive useful lessons from past errors and for the purpose of profiting by dearly bought experiences. So it is good to look back on our Watchtower experience, but it's better to look forward. Don't cry and complain too much about what happened to you. Focus on what you're going to do, how you're going to turn this bad experience into a positive one. How are you going to get the coins that you were given by Watchtower, and how are you going to multiply them so that way you can tell God, look what Watchtower gave me. Look at all of the bad that Watchtower gave me, and look what I did in return. That's the attitude that Christians should be having. And let me just say one other thing. It has to be a loving attitude, because when I ran for governing body of Jehovah's Witness, and I'm doing it again, it's because I love Jehovah's Witnesses. I love the Jehovah's Witnesses so much that I am running for governing body. And I know people think I'm crazy, but the point is this. The governing body doesn't care about you, your opinion, and they don't let you vote because they don't want to give you power. So I could be doing other things, but instead I'm spending my time as an apostate. Why? Because you love the Jehovah's Witnesses. You're trying to show them. What did that guy say? He goes, I'm illustrating absurdity by being absurd. I'm illustrating the absurdity of running for governing body, but being absurd. I'm illustrating the absurdity of the governing body, that they show no love and no respect for you. And so what do? I run for governing body. But it's because I love you. And this is what you have to do as a Jehovah's Witness, PIMO, when you leave. Everything you do, you have to do it because you love your Jehovah's Witness brothers in the congregation. You forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. And you drop seeds. You just have to be a seed thrower. And you have to be masculine. All you women too. A lot of women, they take on that masculine, that womanly role, that mama bear, and they protect their children. They protect their family. And I hope that makes sense. This is how Christ did it. Christ came out he came out swinging. And that's what my message to you. If you really believe in Jesus Christ, come out swinging. Does that make sense? What do you think about that?
Oh, Gilbert, stop asking if that makes sense. You make perfect sense. You're so refreshing. I love it.
Mm-hmm. So now, do you have any other questions, or?
I have one question. Thank you so much. I did not want to interrupt you. I'm just like, whoa, I'm blown away. How did you come out? A lot of people skip over what I call crucial points in their testimony. How did you come from being what you were doing so beautifully in the Watchtower and really being a great example? How did you come to realize, I need to get out of this? I really love the example you gave about, just going to some place that's private with your bread and your wine, and in your own way, surrender to Jesus. I love that. Some people say, oh, just pray this prayer, and they go into this long, I believe and I believe. A lot of us don't believe because we don't know. But just surrender. I love that. And let Jesus just take over. He'll take care of it. Thank you. How did you come out to leave?
Before that happened, before that day I ate the bread and the wine, what led to it was real simple. Two things. There was a born again preacher that later on I used to talk to him all the time at the gas station. And when I told him that I had left the Jehovah's Witnesses, he says, Gilbert, I didn't have the heart to tell you that I knew you weren't going to last as a Jehovah's Witness because you never ever talked like one. That was really interesting. Because I talked to a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, but he goes, you're different. So I always knew though, I always knew that in the back of my head. But what happened is I fell in love with a worldly girl, and it was really bad. It was the greatest thing that happened to me because we broke up. It was very ugly. And but this is what I learned. People do not remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. So a famous broadcaster said that people do not remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And so what happened to my girlfriend, she put me on a pedestal, which I accepted, which was wrong. But by doing so, she was way down here and I was way up there. As a Jehovah's Witness, I was self-righteous and I would make her feel bad about her baggage. And she had more baggage than Sky Harbor Airport. But Jesus loved her more, just as much as he loved me. But the Jehovah's Witnesses don't teach that because they refer to these people as worldly. They always bring everybody down. Kind of like I think the word is ma'aretz, which is the dust on the shoes that the Pharisees considered the people. And so when you lose something that you love, when you love someone and then you lose it, and then you realize it's because you're an idiot, you're a jerk. It was like J.W. Fairy Tale would always say. He says, every Jehovah's Witness has to have their personal Armageddon to wake up. And that was my personal Armageddon. I knew something was wrong. And I'll tell you another thing too. I always remember this in Yuma, Arizona. I had tons of citrus trees. I had over 100 different hibiscus flowers, all different names. I knew every single name of every flower that I had. I had jacarandas. I had it all, poinsettias, whatever. And I looked at God and I said, Father, I said, I worked so hard, and yet look, everything is producing fruit. But yet I worked so hard as a Jehovah's Witness and I produced no fruit. And I knew something was wrong. And when I had that experience with my girlfriend and I lost her, I knew that it was the Jehovah's Witnesses. I didn't make people feel good about themselves. See, although they listened to my spiritual message, what really was happening is I was making them feel inferior to me. So people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. So I knew I had the problem. It's like 10 years later, I emailed my ex-girlfriend. I said, when Jesus says, stop looking at the rafter, the straw in your brother's eye because there's a rafter in yours, I thought he was talking to somebody else. He was really talking to me. And that's the moment I had. You have to lose something of value to understand, is to wake up. You have to have a personal Armageddon. And when your child dies, you get a divorce, your son gets to fellowship, your spouse gets to fellowship, you have a come to Jesus moment, is what the world says. And we all have a come to Jesus moment. But I knew this was the moment I had been training for. I knew, like I was a boxer. I go, all my life I've been training for this. And I finally knew what the problem was, and the problem was me. I was too busy looking at other people when I should have just been focusing on me. What do you think about that?
Like I said, I'm loving your testimony.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, we have about maybe another 11 minutes to wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you get in all of your key points, because we need a few minutes.
Go ahead.
So that people can call in and speak with you, ask questions. Is that okay, Gilbert?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm done.
Are you?
Now you know why. Okay. Now you know why I'm running for governing body, right? I'm totally qualified for this job.
Oh, I was. I was. I can't help but kind of laugh, because that Rick was invited to
Mm-hmm.
basically apply. He was being considered as a potential governing body member and was invited to Bethel. And, if Rick had been one of those types, if he wasn't the beautiful, loving Christian man, very humble, loving man that he is, a true servant of Christ, he could have, if he was that fleshly, arrogant, self-righteous kind of person, he could have played his cards right, so to speak, and probably been a governing body member. They would have loved him because of his loving personality. He's always even-tempered. He's great. But he's the only one I've ever known personally that had a chance to be governing body. So when you say you're running for governing body, I couldn't help but wonder in my mind, exactly how are you doing that? I mean, I'm sure it's metaphoric for something, but I love your testimony.
In 2 weeks time, I should do something again that's really going to blow your guys' mind. But just real quick, kudos goes to Neil, the great apostate. He talked about it in one of my videos, the Gilbert Gonzalez group. And he talked about how when you laugh at a dictator, the emperor has no clothes. Like, I think he said Nicolae Ceausescu down in Europe. When the population laughs at you, you no longer have power. And so that's the point about being GG for GB. When you can actually laugh at the governing body, laugh at them because they are clowns, then they have no control over you. That's the point.
That's what, I don't know. Do you ever watch Mike and Kim on YouTube?
Oh, Mike and Kim and I go back way, yeah. We go back.
Well, Mike is always referring to the governing body as the clowns.
Yeah.
And he calls Stephen Lett his favorite clown. Yeah. And I appreciate your solidifying that point. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love that point. You're right. They have power because we give it to them. Mm-hmm. We do. Well, not we anymore. You and I don't.
Yeah.
I was watching a program a little while ago and somebody said fear. And this is what governing body and Watchtower uses. The elders, they all do. Fear is a valuable tool in getting people to do what you want. Mm-hmm. Isn't it so true?
Yeah,
How can that be from God?
if you haven't seen the video, XJW Critical Thinker, Fear, Obligation, Guilt. It's probably about 8, 6, 7 years old. Fear, Obligation, Guilt. It's a recipe. It's kind of like a playbook that the NFL has, the NBA. Watchtower has that playbook, and that's how they do it.
I never heard of obligation, but I always say they use the tools of fear, shame, and guilt. You know, fear of not living up, fear of not doing everything right, because down deep, you're ingrained with the belief that if you in any way fail to be in good standing with Watchtower, Jehovah's not pleased with you. If you are in any way on, bad terms with Watchtower, if an elder gets mad at you or anything, now Jehovah's upset with you too. Everything that you get in Watchtower is supposedly a reflection of your standing before Jehovah God. So it's constant fear. And they use guilt. You're not ever doing good enough. You're not going fast enough. You're not going far enough. You're not jumping high enough. You're not doing it long enough. It's just constant push, and guilt over not doing enough. And then they shame you for failing. They set you up to fail, and then they shame you in failing. And then there's always that constant undercurrent of emotional blackmail. Ever try to leave or ever get disfellowship for whatever reason, even asking questions or stumbling upon some kind of evidence that proves that Watchtower isn't God's anything, you lose your family, you lose your friends, you lose your entire support system, because they make sure that your entire support system is built upon Watchtower, because they know that the more your life revolves around Watchtower, the more you have to lose. And they've already stolen your true identity, your authentic self. They've stolen your right to be your authentic self. So when you laugh at the emperor, you laugh at the governing body, they lose their power. They do.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gilbert. I'm sorry for talking.
No, go ahead. Did you have any other questions?
No. I wish we had more time. Maybe do you mind if I read over my notes, and then if you want to clarify anything, you go ahead. Is that okay?
Yeah, I guess. I know some people who are recently leaving Watchtower here. Some people that are in Watchtower are here. And I just want to reiterate that point about going grizzly, being bear, taking back your masculinity. You can't be afraid to just to man up, put up your belts and say, no, I'm not going to allow you to treat me this way. You do not have to accept the premise of the other person's argument. So when Watchtower says XYZ, he says, no, I don't have to accept XYZ. I accept ABC, which is Jesus Christ. You are an individual. You are a son of God. You have the birthright that Jesus gave you. You have every right to stand up as an individual and be on equal par with your fellow human being. We're brothers. We don't give each other titles. My brother Jesse Jesus, I never. He's an above me. I'm not above him. We're brothers, and that's how we have to treat everybody. And Watchtower doesn't. They it's like a class system, and you just have to gird up. But my reminder to you, and I repeat this like a beating horse, beating a dead dog, right? You have to. I just lost my train of thought. I just had a brain fart.
Don't you love those?
Yeah.
I love where you basically say, gird up, find your cojones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My little brother has always been subservient with his head hanging down. And I know that's not his nature because I knew him as a child. I grew up with him. I know that is not his nature. And now my little brother, after serving something like 28 years as an elder, being the good Jehovah's Witness, going along to get along, he is the most miserable person. He's been nothing but in misery and depression for like 40 years. And he still plods along. And his JW wife completely controls him. If he farts sideways, she's reading him scriptures about how he's not living up to Jehovah's standards. How emasculating is that? Go ahead, Gilbert.
Oh, no.
How's that brain fart going?
Now, a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, there's a fear that you talked about of leaving. Where do I go? I'm going to lose everything. No. George Washington said this, and where's George? George is right there. He says, freedom when it takes root, is a plant of rapid growth. Freedom, when it takes root, is a plant of rapid growth. When you accept the birthright and you say, I'm God's son, you accept the freedom. You eat the bread and you drink the wine and you surrender to Jesus. Say, hey, I'm yours. You start growing like a tree that's just going gangbusters because you've abandoned your fear. And this is what freedom does. Jesus is freedom. The truth shall set you free. Freedom is like a kingdom, the dominion of the king. Freedom is the dominion of the free. And what is that? That's the body of Christ. So when you join the body of Christ, which is freedom, you're a plant of rapid growth. Nothing can stop you. So don't look back at Watchtower and all your friends. Look forward, because when the time does come and we are in a great tribulation, you're now in a position where you're able to help people and to preserve life. You see, as long as you keep your fear and as long as you keep subservient to Watchtower, when tribulation comes, you can't help anybody. But if you leave now and you leave with your, ready to go, I'm ready for this, and I've been training all my life for this, and you start growing as an individual, when the time is tough and the tough gets going, you're going to be in a position to help people. Freedom, when it takes root, is a plant of rapid growth. And you'll be able to provide food because you're a tree that provides food. You will then be like me, a faithful and discreet slave of Jesus Christ. We all are.
Wow,
all
that is such power.
Yeah.
Is it okay if we open up the lines now, Gilbert? We have enough time now to.
Whatever you want to do.
Okay?
It's your show. Mm-hmm.
Anybody listening to Gilbert's incredibly powerful, loving testimony? Star 6.
Hello?
Go ahead, dear. We hear you.
This is Joe and Fran. Gilbert, I truly appreciate your insight there and everyone else's. I was in the shower this morning and I realized, I said, Jesus' words came to me, said, forgive them for they know not what they do. Our children are basically shunning us. Mm-hmm. We're not just fellowship, but we've been warned against, warning come. But the family, we're all correct, they're shunning us. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I'm just going to remind them that, look, we were first-time parents. We made mistakes. Mm-hmm. No doubt your first time at shunning your parents, no doubt you're making mistakes. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I made mistakes.
So that's, we're just reassuring them, look, do what you need to do. We're here. You've always got our love. And so will the rest of the extended family, because they're very understanding as well. And
yes, that's the point. Always remind them that you're doing it because you love them. If you're not leaving Watchtower because of love, Jesus says, if you're not working with him, you're scattering. What are you doing? Whatever it is you're doing, working your whole soul to the Lord. What are you doing? Well, I'm leaving Watchtower. Well, work on your whole soul. Do it because you want to work with Jesus. You're a worker. And remind everybody that you're doing this because you love them. If you do things out of hate, we'll forgive you, but always do things out of love. And remind them. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to get that point in. There's no need to engage
awesome.
in
Is there anyone? Sorry, is there anyone? Were you finished, brother? I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yes, I'm done.
Anyone else want to start and talk to Gilbert?
No, this was Joe. I'm good. I'm listening.
Is there anything else you want to say? I just want to make sure anybody else who might want to, chime in and speak with Gilbert has a chance. We do have time. Did you want to say anything else, John?
Oh, let me come in, Anne-Marie. This is Rick here at the Six Screens control room up in Massachusetts, and it's always good to see Gilbert. And I like he's full of illustrations. Mm-hmm. He never gets stuck for words. And when he says he was good enough, he was good enough. I can imagine that he did a wonderful job, and I hope he didn't bring too many people into the so-called truth. I hope that didn't happen, but I know he was good at it. I knew other witnesses too that were very, very good at it. And, you know, some of these witnesses, I brought about maybe 4 people in, and I feel bad about it. I met a man once that brought 87 people in. Oh, yeah, 87 people. I mean, that hurts. But, you know, we didn't know at the time what we were doing. But anyways, I liked it when you talked about the governing body. They are being laughed at right now, Gilbert. People are just unbelievable getting on JW videos. They're seeing the governing body up front and close, and they're going, man, these are the people that are these are the people that are controlling us. And I have to tell you, I like the example of the emperor. You know, he's going to have no clothes. And that's just about where the Watchtower is right now. They're being exposed, and they are in a corner. And I really feel good to see, after many years of being out, I got out in 2005. Satan kicked me out of the organization. But I'm really happy now to see that, boy, they are being closed in on. They are being closed in on. Thank you, Gilbert, for coming on with us.
Yeah. Hey, let me just say this real quick. Some people, they don't know what to do. You know, they leave Watchtower, they're thinking about leaving, and they don't know what to do. They're like at a dead end. And in the movie Grease, the musical, she goes, if you can't be an athlete, be an athletic supporter. And it's so true. If you can't be an apostate, you can't do videos, you can't do this, you can't do that. What you can do is be the best supporter of different videos. Pick, you know, a group of 10, 15, 20 different apostates and be the number one fan. Be in there and help and share and encourage your brothers. So what the point is that everybody can do something in the good fight of helping our Jehovah's Witness brothers leave into a safe place. So even if you feel that you can't do anything, that's not true. You can. And I want to give and when a brother or sister is doing a project, always help out. When Joel the Unwitnessed said, Gilbert, I want to go to Warwick, I'm like, sign me up. Why? Because Joel's my brother and I'm going to help him out. And that's how we have to treat each other. You can't help everybody out, but pick 10, 15 different ex-Jehovah's Witness groups out there or websites and be a supporter of those people. And, you know, and be a support system for the Jehovah's Witnesses that leave. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's good. I think that's really good. The apostates say, you know, they need support. They need encouragement, to pat on the back, let them know they're doing good. I know I try to do that to people who have programs here on the 6 screens. We got about 17 different programs running right now. And I try to, you know, pat them on the back and let them know. I mean, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to put this all together. And even yourself, Gilbert, to put this together, come in today and talk to the people. So we're trying to reach the witnesses. It's hard, but I do believe we're making progress.
Correct. If you're a witness, remember, you always were competing. You're Jehovah's organization here on earth. You're God's people. Stop that. Stop competing. Surrender to Jesus. And don't worry about what other people are doing. Worry about what you are doing. And I know you're still a sinner. I know you're still, you know, but just worry about you. And I think that's the best advice I have for people is stop competing. And that's what helped me out a lot. I love to listen to all my Christian friends, and I have disagreements with a lot of them, but I'm not in the competition mode with them. I just don't know what I don't know. And that has helped me. That's helped me tremendously to lift the burden off my back. And I thank God Almighty that Jesus Christ, I tell him all the time, I go, God, thank you because Jesus is judge and you didn't pick me. Thank you. Because I just can't do this job. I can't be judge. I have to surrender. And I have to just let Jesus, I know Jesus loves my brother, and I know I don't understand, and I don't understand a lot of my ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or my current Jehovah's Witnesses, but I just learned to surrender and to stop competing and just try to treat them like I would my brother Jesse.
Well,
wow, Gilbert, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Rick.
No, go ahead, Emery. I wasn't sure you were there, but go ahead.
No, I was just going to see if we can wrap it up. It's a little minute over, but it was just such a powerful testimony, and I really can't wait to hear this, to listen to this show. I took good notes, thank God. But I wanted to thank Gilbert and thank you, Rick, for chiming in, and I'm still blown away at the thought that you could have.
Can I ask one more question of Gilbert?
Yes.
What do you mean to stop competing? Were you on a live chat like with the Knowing God program?
Yeah, I love them all. I love all of them. Yeah, I love them all.
Mention it again now. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude or anything. I'm just asking, what do you mean? You say think only about yourself, but if you're only thinking about yourself, then how are you going to help others?
Correct. And great point. And like a real good member of the governing body that's running, I don't shy away from real tough questions. And you're right, and I think people understood when I says worry about yourself, that like Jesus was saying about, worrying about the rafter in your eye. As far as competing, if somebody wants to believe in the Trinity or Unitarian God, I'm going to let them, because Jesus would always say things like, what do you, he wanted to know what your opinion was. What do you think? Who do you say I am? He was interested. And I find comfort in this. I find comfort in knowing that I'm only, in my 50s. Some of you are 70, some of you are 30. And the universe I'm told, is in billions of years. So we're still babies in the eyes of God. And it's okay. It's okay to be wrong about things, because I was wrong about a lot of things, and I'm probably still wrong about things today. But I have faith that my Father is going to correct me as the days go by. So as long as I'm trying to compete and be superior to my brother, I'm really never going to I'm never going to be able to grow in knowledge. Like my brother Jesse believes in the Trinity, and I'm more of a God the Father, and Jesus is God, or, the Son, but two separate people. So we disagree, but I still love my brother, and we have these great conversations. That's what I'm trying to say about not competing, is have these great, beautiful conversations, but don't try to compete with your brother, is all I'm saying. Don't try to say that you're wrong and I'm right, because we're probably both wrong. and things will get...
I just guess I was wondering that because you said that to Rick, it's for him to only think about himself, and I'm like, no, we need him.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
He's the one that helps so many of us out of this horrible organization. I was in it over 40 years, and I'm a little older than you, and I'm between 30 and 70, so but that just kind of caught me off guard when you said for Rick to think only about himself, and I'm like, no, if he thought only about himself, where would thousands of us be? Because I feel like he started the movement almost to getting out, and I was out by 2000. Well,
Debbie, we're out. We're out.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to ask him that. That's all.
Thank you. And he okay. Thank you so much, Debbie. Okay. I want to thank everyone for coming on, and especially Gilbert. I cannot thank you enough. This was an incredibly fascinating testimony. We are running into Rick's JW World News Sunday edition. Is there any last words you wanted to say, Gilbert, before we say goodbye for now?
I'll be signing autographs later, and like the governing body does, they sign autographs. And and thank you for having me on, because in about 2 weeks, I hope to have my book printed, one of 2 books, and you're going to love it, because I never use that J word. No, I'm the only ex-Jehovah's Witness who prints a book without using the J word. And I'm going to be talking a lot about the GG for GB, and you're going to be blown away, but it's going to basically be to help people understand that the emperor has no clothes. And thank you, Neil, the great apostate.
Hey, I want to tell you, Gilbert, this is Rick here at the Six Screens.
Yeah.
I'm monitoring the different platforms that we're on here, but I have to tell you, there's a lot of people commenting on YouTube. They all love you, but the King of Dots, you know the King of Dots, he writes prolifically all over YouTube. So here's his comment. I think it was great. Gilbert wants to be on the blundering body when he should be running for president of the United States. Go big and don't go at all, he says. So I think maybe Gilbert for president. And he also says, I've been looking at you, Gilbert. I will keep you on the path to greatness. Well, there you go. The great Gilbert.
Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Very good. Well,
okay. Time for JW World News. Thank you so much, Rick. Thank you, Gilbert.
All righty. Well, hey, listen, he's quite the guy. So we're going to end this broadcast. If you're on YouTube, But come back and be with us in just about 5 minutes, not even that, maybe 2 minutes. We'll be back on with JW World News. Okay, thank you very much, Gilbert and Marie. We're going to the next program. Stay with